Well, that's a long rifle. Long barrel.
It sure
That's
is.
an old one there.
Yep.
That's kind of a lead into what Eric's going to talk about here.
Mm-hmm.
How's your aim? Where are you aiming? Isaiah 41, and we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Isaiah
Eric?
41, but if you read it in English, it has nothing to do with aiming at anything. It's a play on words again. So, this is, again, Stone's Tanakh. Let me just read how they start this chapter out. Isaiah 41. Yeshayah. Yod Shin Ayin Yod Hey is the word in Hebrew. Yod Shin Ayin is the word for salvation or deliverance. So Yeshayah is technically the same word as Hosea, Isaiah, Joshua, Yeshua. It's the he will save, Yod Hey, Yah. And in Hebrew, they mix around the nouns and the verbs, so it's kind of like in, or adjectives, it's kind of like in English we might say White House, like where the president lives, but in Spanish they say Casa Blanca, which is house white. So quite often in Hebrew words and in English and in Hebrew sentence structure, the syntax is not syntax like going to Las Vegas, how you have to pay for play, but syntax. Syntax is the structure of the grammar, and so they'll say Yesha Yah saves Yah instead of in English would say Yah saves. Flip around. Anyway, just so you know that when you're reading Hebrew, it's like things are shuffled all over the place, and so you get different translations from the way different people make sense of how these words are. So here you have, be silent to me, O islands. Islands, I-S-L-A-N-D-S. Those little dots of land scattered about the ocean. Be silent to me, O islands. What's he talking about?
That don't make much sense, does it?
And let regimes, that's kingdoms, renew strength. What regimes? Let them approach, let them speak. Together let us approach for judgment. Who's speaking here? I remember in grammar school, if you said, me and the dog walked down the road and found, and he found a stick, or what I'm saying is that if you don't say he who, that was a bad example, but if you don't designate which noun you're referring to linked to the verb, you get a big red circle from the teacher and telling you, stop that, be more articulate, more specific. But gosh, whoever wrote this Bible never bumped into that apparently. It's so confusing. They jump from past tense, present tense, future tense, this person, that person, who's speaking, who's listening. It's all over the place. I've heard it said that the Catholics said, don't try this at home. Leave it to the priests, the ones who have been graced from on high to be able to read this, because it'll drive you insane. And I believe I can understand why they say that. Besides any spiritual component, the way they write this stuff is just nuts. So if you can't figure it out, you can't understand it, it's not your fault. Don't feel like it's your personal problem. It's just the way this stuff is written. I'll go on a little bit. Verse 2. Who inspired from the east, at whose footstep righteousness attended? What? Well, in this particular text, they've put brackets and added some other words. So this is the way it reads. Be silent to hear me, O islands, and let regimes renew strength. Let them approach, let them speak. Together let us approach for judgment. Who inspired the one from the east, at whose every footstep righteousness attended? Who delivered nations to him and subdued kings before him? Who made his enemies like dust before his sword, like straw blown about before his bow? Every time I go like this, I'm adding a bracketed word. So here I'll read it again without the brackets. Be silent to me, O islands, let regimes renew strength. Let them approach, let them speak. Together let us approach for judgment. Who inspired from the east, at whose footstep righteousness attended? I don't know what that's talking about, but delivered nations to him and subdued kings. Made like dust his sword, like straw blown about his bow. So you have to add these other things in order to make any sense. He pursued them and emerged unhurt on a path where his feet had never gone. Who brought about and accomplished? Who proclaimed the generations from the beginning? Now it makes sense. It says, I, Yahweh, am the first, and I am he who will be with the last generations. Bracketed. I am Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. I am the first, and I will be with the last. Well, other places, he claims to be the first and the last, the beginning and the end. In the book of Revelation, John saw this vision, and Yeshua is claiming to be the Aleph Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Then at verse 5, Isaiah 41, the islands saw and feared. What islands? How can islands see and fear? The ends of the earth shuddered. They approached and came. Each man would help his fellow, and his brother he would say, be strong. His fellow worship idols, they have in brackets. That's not in here, but they're saying, well, every man's going to help his friend worship idols. Doesn't say that, but they've added it in because otherwise it makes no sense. And to his brother he would say, be strong. The woodworker would encourage the goldsmith, the finishing hammer, the one who pounds from the start. That's like building a house. You got the framer and the finisher, encouraging each other. He would say of the glue, this is good, and he would strengthen it with nails that it should not loosen. Why is he even talking about this? The islands saw and feared the ends of the earth, and then he's talking about people making idols and strengthening each other and using glue and nails. Verse 8, but you, O Israel, my servant. Okay, now it starts to be sounding cohesive. Jacob, you whom I have chosen, offspring of Abraham, who loved me. Now he's zeroing in on an aim, targeting in. But you, he's not talking to the world, he's not talking to the church, he's not talking to certain people of an ethnic descent, Middle Eastern, African, Oriental, Nordic. He's saying, you, Israel, 12 tribes collected, 13 if you count in Ephraim and Manasseh coming from Joseph. My servant, well, if you're not serving Yahweh, that word is obed, obedient, Obadiah. Same word, ayin bet dalet. Yaakov zeroes in on the son of Isaac being Yaakov, Jacob, not Esau. He's zeroing in on the target here. You whom I have chosen. Well, he said that he chose Jacob but not Esau because of Esau's attitude, but Yahuwah made that decision before the two boys were even born. Is it fair to do that? Well, I'm trying to show you something about reading the scripture here. Offspring of Abraham, so that could have been Isaac or Ishmael, Jacob or Esau, who loved me, you whom I shall grasp from the ends of the earth. I shall grasp from the ends of the earth. What does that mean, the ends of the earth? Does that mean islands? Like you take the continent of the earth, the continent of America, of Australia, of Asia, wherever, and say, oh, there's where the ocean meets the land. That's the edge of the earth. Is that what he referred to? Or is he talking about the end of time? Well, if this is the end of time, then we should say, well, then we, if we want to classify, categorize ourselves as some of this people that is zeroing in on in verse 8 and 9, that we should expect and anticipate him grasping us, and shall summon, now he's calling us, from among all its noblemen, and to whom I shall say, you are my servant. I have chosen you and not rejected you. Why would he say that? Because it might look like he's rejected us? Verse 10, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed. There must be reason to be dismayed if we look about. And he's saying, listen, don't believe what you read on the TV, on the internet, in the newspapers. Don't regard that. I've got a different plan which I'm offering to you because you're in my hand. I am your Elohim. So when we say, Zechariah 13:9, the script to say, Yahuwah Elohi, this is my people. Those two words in Hebrew, Yahuwah Elohi. I am your Elohim. He wants us to declare and claim him, and he will declare claiming us. I have strengthened you, helped you. Strengthen and help it. Well, gosh, I was working yesterday. It was blazing hot, working up on the ladder, and I was cramping up. Gosh, it was miserable. I could barely move. Couldn't move my hands. It's like, yo, you got to strengthen me or I can't do this work. That passed, I was able to get back. Did the job like nothing. He didn't take the job away. He strengthened and empowered to be able to do the job. And I have sustained you with my righteous right hand. Here's an interesting verse. We're going to go back. There's something more to Isaiah 41. We'll get to it in a moment. Behold, all who become angry with you will be shamed and humiliated. What's that really say in Hebrew? Anybody who thinks that you're an idiot, anybody who gets mad at you for going on about this, all this Torah stuff and Yahweh and Israel and, oh, this covenant that he's going to restore, blah, blah, humiliating you, they will be shamed and humiliated. Those who fight with you will be like nothingness and shall perish. So if we make a stand to be Yahweh's Obedi servants, everybody else who contends with us is going to be eliminated. Yahweh is going to strengthen us and they're going to disappear. They will disintegrate. The men who struggle with you, verse 12, you shall seek them but not find them. The men who fight with you, they will be like nothingness and naught. Well, this sounds like Yahweh is going to stage a pretty big conflict of ideology. And people are going to be coming against the people that believe Yahuwah's words. From Isaiah. New Testament isn't even written for another 600 years. So this is the Torah, Yahweh's regard as the Elohim of Israel. That's where the contention is. Verse 13, because, for, Kaf Yod, I am Yahweh your Elohim, who grasps your right hand, who says to you, fear not, I help you. Fear not, O worm of Jacob. That worm is little maggot. Oh, my little maggot, Jacob. O men of Israel, I help you. Though Nam Yahweh, the word of Yahweh, your Redeemer, the Kadosh of Israel, the Kadosh one of Israel. Okay, let me show you something else going on here. Where are you aiming? Okay, today is the regard of Yom Kippur on this one particular calendar. And you're supposed to humble, afflict, torture yourself. Torture yourself. Fasting, thirsting. Some people don't sleep, don't bathe. Sleep on burlap to scritch and scratch. Is that what he's requiring of us? We did a video a couple years ago, the coast of Montecito. I was talking with Fred. You know that song from Fiddler on the Roof? Tradition, tradition. Started it off with affliction, affliction. The day of Yom Kippur. That's the way the Jews do it. They know they've been doing this for thousands of years. They've been afflicted. They've been tormented and battered by the world. They should know what Yom Kippur is all about. Only you read Isaiah 58, and Yahuwah says, not eating and tormenting yourself. You think that's what my fast is all about? No, my fast is about quit making a profit on everybody else's grief. Quit making a profit on cranking up the interest rates and restricting the market. And gosh, the kind of stuff going on now, right?
He's ready to slap their long faces off their head.
And gosh, there was something on the internet the other day, just so you know what's going on. They're saying that, who's behind this COVID thing? The Jews. The Jews. That they're trying to slam the economy, get everybody vaccinated, kill everybody, melt their brains, paralyze their physical bodies so that they can take over the world. It's like, what? Yeah, that's exactly what they were trying to do in the 1930s, which is why Hitler grabbed a bunch of them and threw them in the camps and whatever he did with them. It's like, what? Oh yeah, those same voices. Is there any truth to that? Who is behind all this stuff? I mean, there's certain guys that have names that look like Jewish names, and they're still running the show. They were even behind the Russian Revolution with Marx and Lenin and Stalin, and it's like, what? Who are we pointing the finger at? That us. Point the finger at us and our ancestors, our forefathers, who didn't want to do the words of the Torah. It's not about the Jews. It is about Israel, all 12 tribes. But it's probably about the islands. Be silent to me, O islands. Well, that word island is spelled A in English letters, A-Y-Y-M. Aim. 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 Those are the ones that are aiming. I was doing a play on words. Get to that in a moment. Let me go back to the day of Yom Kippur. Ayin Nun Hey is occupied, busy, concerned. Sing. Affliction, affliction. Bowed down, humbled, meek, modest, poor. That's what he said to do, which can include fasting, not sleeping, not bathing, not brushing your teeth, doing anything that makes you comfortable. Don't do it today. But is that what it means, really? It also means answer, reply, afflicted, torture, fasting, and furrow. You know where you take a plow and you cut a trench and you're stuck in a rut? Stuck in a rut. If you put a mem prefix, change the suffix, the word is interesting. How do you get your attention stuck in a rut of interest? We call it obsessive compulsive. We might call it erectology. Occupied, busy, concerned, self-affliction, psychological trauma. The word ayin nun vav yod is a response in a choir, especially singing a dirge. Do you know what a dirge is? Dirge, D-I-R-G-E. Have you ever heard of a dirge?
Solemn liturgy.
Heave ho. It's sad, it's laborious, it's kind of like, you're at the galley pulling the oars and the guy's got a whip and drums and a dirge of mournful lament. That's what he wants for us today. Psychological trauma. Go back and remember all those things you did that pains you to think about. Oh gosh, didn't he free from that? Didn't Yeshua dying on the cross have all those memories thrown into the sea of forgetfulness so we don't have to dredge those things back up? Do I have to remember them year after year and say thank you, but in the midst of saying thank you for saving me from them, I'm spinning and crash and burn in my own mind of feeling like just somebody should have given me a bullet years ago? Is that what he wants from us? It's easy to go there. A couple interesting verses that we're going to touch base with. One, I'm going to read a couple other things. Isaiah 6:10. 6:9 and 10. He said, "Go and say to this people, surely you hear, but you do not comprehend. Surely you see, but you fail to know. This people is fattening its heart, hardening its ears, and sealing its eyes." This people is doing it to themselves, lest it see with its eyes, hear with its ears, and understand with its heart, so that it will repent and be healed. There's this certain thing about having our eyes blinded and our hearts sealed over, our ears deafened, but he's saying in this hand we're doing it to ourselves. 2 Kings 6:16 is where Elijah, and there was his sidekick was next to him, and gosh, we're surrounded. The enemy army is so big. We're in a trapped city. There's a famine going on. We're all doomed. We're dead. Where's Yahweh's help? And Elijah prayed and said, Abenu Shabbat Shemayah, our Father in the heaven, will you please open the eyes of my servant and let him see? And suddenly he saw these flaming chariots with angels. And Elisha said, there's more with us than there is with them. Don't fear. Don't regard what your eyes see. Regard what your heart sees in these words. Isaiah 29:19. The meek, that word for meek is ayin nun vav yod mem, while the word ayin nun hey is that word to be humbled, meek, oppressed, afflicted. So this is a different suffix, but it's still the same word. Ayin nun is the root word, and whether it's the masculine suffix, the feminine suffix, you stick a mem prefix or a tav prefix, or change the suffix to a vav yod or yod tav. It's a matter of analyzing the language so you know who he's talking to. The meek will increase their joy in Yahuwah. The poor, that's a different word, that's aleph bet, yod vav nun yod. Avioni is the poor. Well, there's dalet lamed. Lamed is poor, and ayin nun hey can be poor. Why is aleph bet poor? It also means sprout and verdure. It also means to have a passionate desire. It's the word for father, aleph bet. So this, basically my interpretation of this word is those who have a regard for my passion, both for and against. A passion for the things that I really want to do, and a passion to join with me in resisting the things that I abhor. Avioni. But it's just translated poor. The Avoni among my people will rejoice in the Kadosh One of Israel. For the fierce man is no more, the scoffer has ceased to be, and all who strive for iniquity will be cut off. Is this the end of the world he's talking about, or is this right now maybe he's referring to? Isaiah 29. Verse 20, those who with a word cause man to sin and ensnare the one who gives rebuke at the city gate and mislead the righteous with falsehood. That's what we've been talking about. Those who would be righteous for 2,000, yea, back to the days of David, 3,000 years, have been misled with falsehood because it doesn't line up with this scripture. Going on to verse 22, therefore thus says Yahuwah, who redeemed Abraham, to the house of Yaakov, Yaakov will not be ashamed now, and his face will not pale now, when he sees his children, my handiwork in their midst, who will sanctify my name. That's making his name Kadosh. They will sanctify the Kadosh of Yaakov and revere the Elohim of Israel. That's 600 years before Yeshua. So this isn't the Christian New Testament he's referring to. Then he says, verse 24 of Isaiah 29, those of misguided spirit will attain understanding, and complainers will learn instruction. Well, has that happened yet? Has this been fulfilled? Back up a couple verses. Woe to those who try to hide in depths to conceal counsel from Yahweh. And their deeds are in darkness. They say, who sees us and knows of us? Kind of sounds like the definition of that thing called the deep state cabal. Those who live in the swamp that the President of the United States promised to drain. Shall your contrariness be considered like the potter's clay? Can a product save its maker? He didn't make me, or a molded thing save its molder. He doesn't understand. Behold, in just a little while the Lebanon will become farmland. The farmland will be considered like a forest. What does that mean? That's another subject we're not going to get into. But you look at that and go, what the heck is he talking about? This I can understand. On that day, the deaf will hear the words of a book. And from darkness and blackness, the eyes of blind people will see. Then it goes in the next verse, the meek will increase their joy in Yahweh, the avion, the poor among the people will rejoice. Why? How do you hear about a book that's been sealed and see words which have been blinded from you? The Paleo-Hebrew. I believe these are prophecies of the Paleo-Hebrew. (29:9). Ponder it and be astonished. They have been utterly blinded. They were drunk, but not from wine. They staggered, but not from liquor. For Yahweh poured upon you a spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes. He has covered the prophets and your chiefs, the seers, to you all. The true prophecy is like the words of a sealed document which one gives to a literate person, saying, please read this, and he says, I cannot, for it is sealed. Then the same document is given to an illiterate person, saying, please read this, and he says, I'm not literate, I can't read, I don't know books. And we've talked about this before, where you take the same words, lo yerati sefer, that the illiterate man says, and if you look at those same three words pictographically, it unlocks and you know exactly what the entire sealed message is from looking at the Paleo-Hebrew letters. It's astounding. Isaiah 44:18. They did not know, they did not understand, for their eyes are smeared, blocked from seeing, their hearts from comprehending. Talking about the idolaters. Verse 21, Isaiah 44. Remember these things, Yaakov and Israel, for you are my servant. I fashioned you to be my servant, Israel. Do not forget me. That's the opposite side of remember, Zakar. So our job to be Yahuwah's Obedi is to come back and regard his words. I will have, or I have, wiped away your willful sins like a thick mist, and your transgressions like a cloud. Return to me, for I will have redeemed you. Well, if this has anything to do with Yeshua's crucifixion, why doesn't it say so? Why doesn't it say, hey, I'm going to send the Messiah to save you, to remove your willful sins and redeem you from your transgressions? He doesn't say it. He just says he's going to do it. So as far as I'm concerned, he can accomplish that task through what Yeshua did. Fine, I've got no argument with that, but he's not making it known in Isaiah 44 how he's going to do it, but he does say he has or will do it based on how you translate these words. Sing a glad song, O heavens, for Yahweh has done wonders. That word wonders isn't even necessarily in here. That word wonders is bracketed. Shout for joy, O foundations of the earth. Break out with glad song, O mountains, O forests, all its trees. For Yahweh has redeemed Jacob. He will glorify himself through Israel. When? How? I thought he got sick and tired of Israel and threw them away into the trash bin and got a new covenant with a new people. A bunch of goyim who don't have to do anything, he said, who don't have to learn how to read, who don't have to shema, shemer, or say nothing. Just believe. Doesn't seem to agree. My point is, We're going to get back to Isaiah 41. When you read this in Hebrew, it is different than in English. The first two words, Ali, Aim, aim, toward me, Aleph Lamed Yod, aim, Aleph Yod Yod Mem, Aim, Ve La Amim, Vav Lamed Aleph Mem Yod Mem, very similar word but slightly different than Aleph Yod Yod Mem, Yod Het Lamed Yod Pei Vav, Kaf Het, let regimes gain strength. Okay, there's a whole different way to read this. So, I'm just saying, the word for islands is the root of the word saying, where, what? How do you find this? A port in a storm, a harbor, a safe place? So it's translated islands, but it also means lost ones, people who have lost their way. People have suddenly come to the realization that we've inherited lies from our ancestors. I'm not making a comment about my ancestors. That's what the scripture says. This whole concept of paleo, they make paleo food now. This stuff's actually pretty good. Sabatinos, paleo, sausages, dairy-free, grain-free, soy-free, gluten-free, no additives, non-GMO, keto-friendly, paleo. I'm not doing a plug for the company, but what I'm saying is paleo means go back to the raw, real, original, without additives, without translations, without all the stuff to lead you astray, blind your eyes, harden your heart, deafen your ears. So the word paleo means hidden and wonderful and marvelous and awesome and mystery of like, that's astounding. In Psalms 119 verse 18, David said, open my eyes that I may perceive the nephalot. Noon, prefix, vav tav suffix, the word in between is paleo, pele. Hidden wonders, the mysterious things hidden from the wise men, academians, ecclesiastical authorities of church and state. For centuries, this stuff has been hidden. Now, the interesting thing that I found, which is what we're going on here, is that if you look here in verse 4, I, Yahweh, am the first, and I will be with the last. I am the first, and I'm going to project to the last. That's kind of like this Aleph Tav concept. There's an Aleph Tav concept. Where's the last? What verse is the last? Where it gets down into verse 29. Behold my servant, whom I shall uphold, is the beginning of chapter 42. And it says here in the margin, the Messiah, God's servant. So at the beginning of chapter 42, he starts talking about revealing some attributes of the Mashiach, my chosen one in whom my soul desired. I placed my spirit upon him so he can bring forth justice to the nations. He will administer justice in truth. He will not slacken nor tire till he sets justice in the land, and islands will long for his teaching. Islands long for his teaching? Coastlands? Again, it's those who have lost, who know they're lost, know that they've been misled, lied to, distracted, deceived by the adversary or by their preachers, by their priests, by their clerks and clerics, by the ones who are supposedly literate. But if it's a sealed book, it's not their fault. I'm not blaming anybody. There's this concept we mentioned, Zeitgeist. You look at that. There's a couple videos, Z-E-I-T, G-E-I-S-T. I think that's German or Latin for spirit of this age. It's a video showing you stuff that you may not want to see or believe or even give a regard to. It's about stuff that happened on 9/11, stuff going on in the Christian church, stuff going on in the culture of all kinds of stuff that you wish you didn't know anything about. You want to deafen your ears, la 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 la. Don't even want to watch that show on YouTube. But the point is, it means spirit of this age. And that's the stuff that's been going on in this generation's conscious memory all the way back to the 50s and the 40s. We've been lied to, deceived by fake news for decades, and it's only now that it's being coming about. Francis Schaeffer had a place in Switzerland called La Brie House, and he wrote a book, did a film TV series about how should we then live. Starts off at the ancient Greeks, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Pythagoras, 500 BC, shows it evolving, rolling through the Roman era, through Europe, through Christendom, America, and how are we now? How everything in art and music and architecture and philosophy and psychological constructs and politics all are building on what came before. Because this and this, the natural inclination is resolve the trouble, that. And once you're that, then you see that. It's a step-by-step, incremental, like a ladder, like stepping stones. And so it's a pretty nice treatise that he did on the subject. And all of a sudden he says, so where are we now? And what's the next step? Well, he did this back in the 70s and didn't even see anything that's happened since. But if you look back at modern history and say, Jesus coming, the Christian church, and then you had the Orthodox setup, the Catholic broke off, the Protestants broke off, and then all the disarray, and what has to happen? Where do we go next? Find the truth, get back to the core, through the root, the Hebraic roots movement. Then everybody just goes nuts, crazy stuff starts happening. Paleo, back to the pure beginning, without additives.
It's good sausage.
It is good sausage. Sabatinos. People at Sabatinos, you should check into this Paleo Hebrew Erictology stuff too. You may appreciate it as much as we appreciate your product. Anyway, so going back and saying, this is where we are. This is where we have evolved. And so verse 1 is talking to us. Us who choose to find ourselves in the rut, in the furrow of Mem, Ayin, Nun, Hey, and are torturing ourselves with saying, where's the reality? How do we wake up? How do we get back on track? It doesn't matter whether anybody else on the planet, in the world, in our family, is equally concerned or bothered or disturbed or afflicting themselves to find the truth, but I sure am. So this is a different way to read Isaiah 41. Where are you aiming? Aiming at the paleo truth, the emet, the chesed of Yahweh. Like we talked about in the previous video about the AI Jesus. Oh, the trouble that's coming there. The meteors are supposed to hit in a month, blow the bejeebers out of this earth, knock it off its axis. The aliens are going to come in. The demon spawn of the Nephilim get unloosed from CERN and the pit of hell and crashing the economy, and the Jews taking over the world and killing off, the Georgia Guidestones, 7 out of 8 people. I could go on. Crashing the economy, changing the money, and injecting, lizard DNA into humans and pigs and monkeys, and yeah, they've got all these things planned. But Goliath was pounding his chest and defying, blaspheming the Elohim of Israel. He didn't last much longer. So here you go, verse 1. And now I'm going to read a translation and then correlate it to the letters of the alphabet. Verse 1. Toward me, where, if, terribly frightened, seeking shelter somewhere, anywhere, a port in a storm, an uncharted island in the sea. The principal, authentic, original people, natural born. Something is wrong. Something is changed, substituted. Vigorous, cocky power has been put to the sharp edge of the slaughtering knife. Feel it. Realize the materialization. Corporeal substance. Grok. Zabetness. Now this kind of sounds like something you'd hear in the Matrix movie. The word grok is from a book called Stranger in a Strange Land. I forget the author. Read it in 1972. He coined that phrase grok. No other English word would fit, but it's like get it, perceive it, taste it. And bet, kind of speaking Hebrewish here, but bet is the manifestation of the Aleph, the invisible silent Aleph expresses itself into bet. So grok the betness. Feel it, realize something's wrong. I think that's the way Zeitgeist starts off, is the way the movie The Matrix starts off. And when it says something about the principal, authentic, original people, natural born, that's Yama, as in Yama Ensemble. It's like, where's the power? Where's the presence? Where's the attitude? Where's Yahweh saying he will be with his people, save his people, enlighten his people? But all we see is blind eyes, deafened ears, hardened hearts. It's like, what the heck is going on around here? Don't you realize something's out of sync? Don't you see something's wrong? Why are Yahweh's words not happening? That's the rut. Burden yourself with seeking the truth. That's Yom Kippur. Aleph, I am Yahweh, the Rashun, and the Acharn Nim. I am He. Bet, lost ones, Aim, ones who don't have an aim, who need to find the aim to the center of the target, saw and had reverent regard for the exhibition made perceptible. Gimel, Kutzot, Haaretz, the ends of the earth, alarmed, trembling, anxious terror, drawing near. Now what I'm doing is showing you that I found, starting in verse 4 at the Aleph, we're going to follow, and I'll just say the name of the letter and the phrase that is accompanied it, and we're going to go click by click, step by step, like cogs in a gear, like stepping stones on a path. Boom, 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 and showing you how seeing the Hebrew alphabet correlates to the next sentence all the way through Isaiah 41, as if you have the map of the Hebrew alphabet, you can compare it to what's going on in the narrative and see that the whole thing is ordered. It's not so confusing as the translators have made it out to be, because apparently they don't even see this. But the use of the alphabet is to order your mind, to realize Yahweh's got this all mapped out. And then where are we on the map? Where are we on the map of eschatology? Where have we come from? Where are we now? What's expected right in front of us? Like that, how should we then live? Like that zeitgeist, the spirit of the age is this, it came from that, but what's in front of us? The map of the alphabet should tell us, and it's in a spectacular, wonderful place. If you're aiming at Yahweh's target of his identity and intent, at Yeshua, at the Torah, at the word of the alphabet, at Yahuwah, Zavot, Eloheinu, everything gets perfectly clear. The ends of the earth ties Kutz Haaretz, ties into Daniel 12:4. Hide the words and seal the book, Daniel, until the time of Kuf Zadi. It means to wake up, but it's translated the end. It's the end of the coma, the end of the curse. Vav Yod, Aleph Tav, Yod Vav Nun. And Yod, Aleph Tav, Yod Vav Nun. Take off the prefixes and the suffixes, and you have basically Aleph Tav arrives in actuality. This is in the Dalet position. That's what this word means. The Aleph Tav arrives. That phantom word that nobody knows how to define is suddenly definable. It's the study of these words. Dalet is a door, a place to make a decision, an intersection, a juncture. Dalet could be pictured as the choke point on an hourglass. This whole realm of reality, like from the heavens, choking down to one little thin, where one grain of sand at a time can, into this other world. Yeshua being the Dalet, it's like this, it's drawn up there on the chart. The point is, I'm just trying to show you what's going on. Something about the reality of the realm of the heavens, which nobody could see or ponder or understand, is suddenly at this point Daleting, being made evident, clear. But you have to see that Yeshua is Mashiach, this Aleph Bet in human form, and that we are called to be his people, following him, giving glory and praise, Avion, doing the will of our Father in heaven. And if you don't, it'll stay locked up. You'll be blinded, deafened, and a hardened heart, and you'll miss the whole thing. Verse 6, each man his friend helping, and his brother saying, be strong, and he will strengthen. Slice, hyphen, silent, deaf, mute, craftsman. That's the word reshin, koresh. Dark incantations, making combinations. Alchemy, banking, refining, cleansing, burning. These are all definitions of the word Zadi Resh Pei, to purify by joining. Sounds like the definition of vaccinations. Imagine that maybe verse 6 of Isaiah 41 is talking about the people that don't see Yahuwah, are saying to their brothers, be strong, we'll give you vaccinations, we're going to purify by making combinations of chemicals so that you'll be strong. There's no strength in the combination of chemicals. The strength is in understanding his words. And then there's a few words here. Mem, chet, lamed, yod, kuf, smooth, slippery, divisive, controversy. That's what's happening right now. Take the vaccine or don't take the vaccine. That's the controversy, and they're ripping the country apart. America I'm referring to specifically, but the whole world. Pei tet yod shin, flat-nosed hammer, or manufactured fetish. Sounds like the same thing they're doing. This is all what I'm saying is all these words kind of fits what's happening, the zeitgeist, the spirit of this age right now. He vav lamed mem, fitting and appropriate. Pei ayin mem, the anvil which is struck by the hammer to impel, thrust, perturb, to strike the beat, gong the bell. Aleph mem resh, declaring, mandating by decree. All this stuff sounds like exactly what they're trying to pull off with this whole vaccine business. Lamed, dalet, bet, kuf, regarding contagious, attached, adhere, devoutness, cling to infection. It's regarding the infection of trying to cling to you, so they're going to get these vaccines to try to keep it away, but they've got the wrong vaccine. They can't even isolate the thing, and it's maybe not even a virus, but a bacteria that the doctors in Italy discovered, and that certain other things will help you. Hydroxychloroquine. It's not about that. It's about this verse 6 of Isaiah 41. These guys are doing anything they can. There's a verse that says in the New Testament, the devil knows his time is short, book of Revelation, so he goes on a rampage. Kind of sounds like this. Tet vav bet, he vav aleph, vav yod chet zayin kuf he vav. Good it is, and it will strengthen. Immunize, keep, hold. Bet mem, samik mem, resh vav mem, lamed aleph, vav mem, vav tet. With nails, needles, so it cannot slip, totter, fall. A motto to be yoked by, overthrown, made to fall. In other words, it says people are using glue and nails to hold it so it won't fall, but it's like coming up with some inoculation to keep everything from happening when Yahweh says, you guys are he's gonna make the bad guys, the evil ones, the wicked, drink out of the goblet of their own abominations that they've been forcing his people to drink from all these years. Yahweh's going to turn it back on them. Is the word nails or is it needles? Is it strengthening or immunization? Is it devoutness or is it a contagious infection? What I'm saying is that if you know how to read these words, there's a whole nother reality, and it looks like it's talking about these days in 2020 right now. Verse 7 lining up with the letter Hey. But you, Israel, a whole different reality. Those first verses, Aleph through Dalet, were setting up, and now he's changing the subject. But you, Israel, my servant, Obedi, you whom I have chosen, offspring of Abraham, who loved me, you whom I shall grasp from the Kuf Zadi, the ends of the earth, and shall summon from among all its noblemen, and to whom I will say, you are my personal servant. Obadiah, I have chosen you, and I have not rejected you. The letter Vav lining up with the word in. We're going to now jump between verse 7 and 13. Just coming up, just reading the concepts. Al-Tira, fear not, Kaf Yod, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, Kaf Yod, for I am your El-Heka. I have strengthened you to be courageous. Also to be my wife, my assistant, my deputy. Also maintenance support as the group not beaten. Bet Yod Mem Vav Nun, Bem Yod Nun, Zadi Dalet Kuf Yod, classified as my Zadik. Evidence, proof that I am victorious. Israel will be saved, will be rescued, redeemed, and seen as the spectacle of Yahuwah's salvation, because it's in Israel that Yahuwah will be glorified and honored. Proof that his word prevails and that Yahuwah, our Elohim, is the victorious one. Lining up with the letter Zion now that's completely set apart. Zion means to be cut off, set apart, like the Sabbath day. Behold, all who become angry with you will be shamed and humiliated, like we read at the very beginning. Those who fight with you shall be like nothingness and shall perish. Look, but you can't find them, the men who struggle, kindled, ignited against you, vaporized, be like nothingness, like zero, nullified, the men who battle and contend and fight against you. Verse 13, the letter Chet. Kiani Yahweh El Heka. Place of strength, your right hand, the declaration to you, fear not. Ani Azartika. I will help you, aid you. I am your Chet, your enclosure, your fence of the Mishkan, as it were. What does it really mean, this is an aside, to have faith in God, to trust in Jesus, in light of history of the Inquisition, of the Holocaust, of the world wars and things that have happened? Monks trusted in God and in Jesus and in Ireland and were hand copying pages and pages of scripture. The Vikings come in and chop them up, and like, where is their protection? You look through history and it looks like nothingness. What I'm saying is for Yahweh to say, do not fear, it's like, oh, that's easy to say until you have a Viking coming at you with his sword. Or worse, the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, the Syrians, the Egyptians. It's like, oh, the Germans, like, oh, gosh, the British, the Americans. Verse 14, the letter Tet. Al Tere, do not fear my little maggot Yaakov. Until when will he be straight, powerful, Israel? I am your Ayin Zion Resh, Ozar. Ezer Kenegdo is the word for wife. It's the same type of word. Nam Yahweh. When he says Nam Yahweh, that's that seal of red wax. How many minutes?
I think about 5.
No, 5 minutes. We're only on Tet. And your Redeemer, Deliverer, golly, Gimel Aleph Lamed, Yod, my Redeemer, golly. Gomer Pyle used to say that. Kadosh Israel, your kinsman who would be defiled himself to cleanse you of your pollution. Why, that sounds like Yeshua. It's right there, verse 14, Isaiah 41. If you know how to read. Verse 15, lining up with Yod. Behold, then there's the word Semitic. Like the language, like the Hebrew alphabet. I have placed you, now this is what Yahweh is making of his people. I have placed you as a threshing sledge, toothed, pointed, diligent, decisive, alert, and eager, new, beautiful, with many blades, threshing the mighty, to become thin, fine, minute, and lifted up ones like chaff, dry and empty their places. Yahweh's going to use his people to take out the bad guys, is what it sounds like. Verse 16, flow, sweep away, pour out a flood, and ruach. Carry them as the wind, carry them as nothing in storm, tempest, raging. Samek ayin resh, explosively open mouth, scattering them. And as for you, tagil, exult, rejoicing in Yahuwah as Kadosh Israel, brilliantly shining, praising, boasting. Why, that's tomfoolery, outright foolishness. That's what the word means. Yahweh says you guys are going to be rejoicing, and he's going to use his people as a threshing sledge to annihilate everybody that comes against the people that regard the Torah of Yahuwah, the covenant of Aleph Tav that Yeshua came to show us the truth of. Verse 17, Kaf, the 11th letter. The poor and destitute beg for water, but there is none. Their tongue withers from thirst. Lamed, I, Yahuwah, will answer them. Elohi Israel, I will not forsake them, regardless of what it looks like with this quarantine and the starvation of what they're trying to bring in this fall by telling farmers to kill their cattle and bury their produce. What the heck are these guys doing? They're forcing famine. They've got it in the works, but Yahweh says, I will tend my people. Verse 18, letter Mem. I will open up rivers upon the hilltops. springs in the midst of valleys. I will open mouths to speak the language preeminent, Ivrit. And you will be worthy of breaking open, of assaulting by force, take by storm. Noon, I will turn the desert into a pond of water, parched land into sources of water, place of springs gushing out water. Sounds like he's going to change the ecosystem, and if it means shift the earth on its axis, or send in a meteor, an asteroid to whack the planet, boom, and send it off to another place, he's going to change the whole ecosystem and put water back in the land, and the whole thing will be different. Verse 19, Samik, which is an engineered structure. Noon, remember, is a lightning bolt of impact. A tonic to gain strength by. The language, Ivrit, Hebrew, the place of words. Then he gives us a list of names of trees that will sprout. Arez, cedar or rice, to be firm, solid, packed tight, firmly rooted. I'm going to read these real fast, and this is like the idea. There's another way to read the names of the trees. Acacia, to be mad, went wrong, played the fool astray, unfaithful wife. We certainly did. Hopped, danced on tiptoe like a ballerina bride. Tree of oil, open eyes to evaluate Shem, assess the cause. Count, I will place with willows in pleasantness, sweet mixed company. Cypress, clarification, pure, refined poison. Elmer ash tree, spurred, galloping racehorse. Tishur, cedar, box tree, confirmation, authentication, walk straight, happy, blessed, all together. It looks like there's good stuff in front of us. That's what I keep reading here. Yeah, the tribulation's coming, but not for those who are of Yahuwah. It's coming for the people that oppose him with their evil. Verse number 20, the letter ayin, so that they shall see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of Yahuwah has done this. And the Kadosh Israel has Bet Resh Aleph Hey, created, made to be a form, fattened, cleared the way, the overgrowth. Verse 21, pay, bring it near, approach for conflict as a game, a battle, a sacrifice. Your accusation, your contention, the artistic attitude of approach. It's the same word for geisha, as a geisha girl in Japan. Same word. Try, intensive, strong, powerful, materialized. Ossified as bone, essence, meaning, substance, self, character, argue, endeavor, closed eyes. What does all that mean? What is the true essence of the words Yahweh hid from his seers? It's in the letters, the paleo letters. We already went through that at the beginning. Read Isaiah 45. The entire chapter, it ends with verse 25. All the seed of Israel will be vindicated in glory in Yahweh. He will declare the high utterance of what you were destructed, Yaakov, your deceitfulness, your hindrance, your consequence, and what happens at the hinder part, nowadays, being raised to the third power cubed, sitting on high. Letter 22, Zadi, that's about where we are now, coming back to the words of Yahweh, his Torah. He will approach and he will tell the most fantastic, legendary story, virtually mythical, about the united, confederated tribes, about us, Aleph Tav, and about they whom, and that which is true, straight, right, authentic, valid, radiant splendor, glorious majesty, power and might, the esteem allotted to the highest and best, topmost since the beginning, foundational to everything else that has ever happened or ever will. What? Behold the legend. It's about fortune and desolation, bearing fruit and being decimated, being raised up, only to be cut down, breathing in, breathing out, as his son, and knowing or making known the future inscriptions, engravings about what's next, or the arrival of what each letter of the alphabet is a symbol for us to hear. This is all about these words of the Torah being made known that Daniel was told to hide. This is about us finding ourselves at Pei, Zadi, Kuf, and we've only got seconds before the tape runs out. Kuf, verse 23, the saga of the Etiot, the Aleph of Yod Vav Tav, the signs, symbols, which are the letters of the alphabet, which express the terms of our oath of agreement concerning the future, the next events of knowing or making known, Kaf, Yod, because Elohim Atam, gods you are, gods they are, good they are. They stand as titans or benchmarks of progression, mandated fixtures of establishment, characterized by a nose of goodness and evil, generating fear and awesomeness, pleasingly or simultaneously expressing both without negating either oxymoronically. Can you understand these words so fast? You'll have to watch this tape again and again.
Yeah.
Shin, at the risk of uncovering my secret. Waking up to alert vigilance about the great hope as has been expected, looking forward to, he will, Aleph Tav, from the place of the rising sun, oriented himself, found his bearings as a nimble, industrious servant. He will answer the invitation to assemble to learn to read the scripture in Hebrew